So here we go. Today is July 10, 2022. 2 weeks after uh, we had our June 2022 hackathon, uh, which is a hackathon we are running within the context of a funded proposal whose title is Club plus Hackathon equals Cardano adoption funded in Fund 7. This is a second hackathon in the row. We've held one in January, and we are having one in. We had this one. We are having. I mean, we had the last one in June, and we are getting ready to send out the prizes. Pretty exciting. So it involves a lot of steps. As you can see, my screen is I have a shell over here divided in two blocks. This first block is actually running a live Cardano node on mainnet. And down here is a space where I will be sharing with you the process of, sending those prices live. So what we are going to do first is to run a command to query the protocol parameters and save them into a file called protocol.json that will then be used to run our subsequent queries. So there you go. So that command just created a file called protocol.json that we can sneak at. See, it's a bunch of information about the Cardano node protocol, but we don't want to get too much into that. I just wanted to show you. So if I clear that, then our next command is to figure out which UTXOs we have available on my address. I have a wallet installed that are created on this computer. And the command to do that is this. This is actually my address. So I'm querying all the UTXO within this address. That's actually a file in which my address is, my public address, of course. So here I can see that I have 4 UTXOs. That one has one Lovelace. Actually, it's 1000 Lovelace, which is 1 ADA. This one has 1000 million Lovelace, and that's 1000 ADA, which is, the total prices amount that we want to send out. Then I have another one, 13 ADA. So what we're going to do here is we will combine the 13 ADA and the 1000 ADA, given that we'll have some fees when we send this transaction, in such a way that the fees can be covered, because the transaction will probably cost around like 1000 more, a little bit more over. So we use this in building our transaction. So first of all, we need to build a draft transaction just in such a way that we can then use that draft transaction to calculate the fees, to estimate the fees for our transaction. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy and paste the command. Let me add some space here. So I'm going to copy and paste the command. So what we have here is the command. there you go. Cardano CLI transaction build raw. And over here, we start like inputting parameters. So we can see that we have two UTXO inputs that are coming from up here. Actually, this one and that one. So the total amount for that input is 1013 ADA. And down here, we are specifying addresses we are sending, this UTXO2. So, and we introduce this by using minus, dash tx dash out. And over here, within this P2, P3, P5, and so on files, we have addresses of the participants. And here we are, since we are just trying to figure out the fees, we are adding 0 for now, plus 0. All the way down here, we have a special tx minus out input, which is actually my own address, and the rest of the money resulting from the 1013 ADA will be sent back to this address. So down here we have a file containing some information. It's a metadata file we're attaching to this transaction. It contains information for our brave participants, and we can display it using the cat command, and it just says who we are and what the event was about, and also a big thank you note to all of our participants. So now, as you can see down here, the goal again for running this draft transaction is to figure out the fees, to then create a file called tx drive. We call the tx drive draft, and we'll subsequently use that file to calculate the fee for the next steps. So our next step is then to calculate the fee, estimate the fees using this tx drive draft that we just created. So if we do cat tx draft, it's there. So we're going to use the tx draft file to estimate the fees for our transaction. So I'll copy and paste the command, and again down here. So first of all, this is our command. We are giving it the tx draft file that we created before as an input. We are indicating here how many transaction UTXO we will be using as input to our transaction, and we are also specifying how many outputs we will have. We have 38 brave participants that will get prizes, but the 39 one is actually my address that will get the rest of the money, or the difference or leftover money from the overall transaction. So down here we have the network we are sending this transaction to. It's actually the mainnet, and the protocol file that we created, protocol JSON. So here is the fee. So it's small, I would say a little bit over 1/3 of an ADA. That's pretty good. That's pretty cheap for such a big transaction compared to what you would get with other platforms. But now that we know the fee and we know how much total we will be getting from as an input for the overall transaction, I think I mentioned that before. If we go back up here, it's coming from these two, which are referencing this UTXO 1000 ADA and 13 ADA. So we know the fee, which is here. We know the total amount that we will use in this transaction. But we also know how much total these output addresses will get. So what we have next to do is to figure out like what left over will be sent back to my own address. So let's go down here. So we're going to run this expression. So this is 1000, let's say 1000 million Lovelace plus 13 million Lovelace, which come from the two transaction inputs. Then all the transaction output 38, excluding mine, will get that 1000 million Lovelace. That's the prize money, distributed to participants. And the fee for the transaction is what we just calculated, 386,645 Lovelace. So the amount we get here is the leftover that will be sent to my wallet. So I will copy the final transaction and paste it here. So what just happened here is we kind of rebuilt our transaction, now specifying real amounts. As you can see here, we have this address getting 150 something ADA. The second one getting 52 ADA, and so on. And that leftover we just calculated is the amount that will be returned back to my address there, somewhere around like 12 ADA. Over here we have the fee, the cost for the fee estimated, and as an output we created a TX raw file. So the next thing we are going to do is to sign the TX raw file. So we are going to sign this raw transaction. And the way we do it, again, I will copy and paste the command. And it looks like there's a mistake there. Let's see. Tidy this up. So we'll do it again. So there you go, and it worked. So that's my command. I'm passing the raw transaction we built as an input to that file in which it was registered. I'm specifying the signing key file, which is my private key. I'm specifying here which network I'm submitting, I'm building the transaction for, or signing the transaction for. And I'm getting an output file here, which is a signed transaction. So we can display the signed transaction. Again, a bunch of information that might not make sense, but it actually makes sense to some degree. So now the next step is to actually submit the transaction. And I'm getting a little bit nervous here. So again, I'm gonna copy the command and I'm gonna paste it and be ready. Failed. So as you can see, we got an error. And we'll have to figure out what the problem is. So it looks like yeah, so we're gonna have to troubleshoot it. Okay, guys. I think I will pause the video now and come back when I figure this out.